Hello, I have written a new story for you. I don't want to reveal too much, so this time let's just jump into it.
My MIL told my 11-year-old, Jamie needs 2 seats, so you won't be coming with us. Then they all went to the amusement park while leaving my daughter alone at home. When my husband found out, he did this. 3 days later, they were calling in a panic because I pulled into my in-laws' driveway after my Saturday shift, already smiling. My mother-in-law, Donna, had taken the kids to the amusement park, and I expected my 11-year-old daughter, Hannah, to talk through dinner about roller coasters, overpriced lemonade, and whichever cousin had gotten sick first. I rang the bell instead of walking in because my hands were full. Hannah opened the door. She still wore the bright amusement park t-shirt I had laid out for her that morning. But her hair had gone flat. There was no paper wristband on her arm, and she carried no souvenir cup or prize. The television played behind her in the dim living room. "You're back already?" I asked. Hannah stepped aside. "I never went." I put my purse on the entry table but did not take off my shoes. For 1 second, I thought she meant she had skipped a ride. Maybe the biggest coaster had scared her, or maybe she had felt sick after breakfast. "What do you mean, you never went?" She looked toward the television instead of at me. "I stayed here." "With Grandma after you came back?" "No." Her voice got smaller. "I stayed here all day." The smile I had carried to the door disappeared, and nobody had called me. I moved into the living room, still looking for the missing explanation. Hannah's backpack sat beside the couch exactly where she had dropped it that morning. The envelope with her spending money stuck out of the front pocket, unopened. Her water bottle was full. The lunch container I had packed for the park sat empty on the coffee table. "You ate your lunch here?" She nodded. "I got hungry." I asked whether she had felt sick before they left. She shook her head. I asked whether Donna had brought her home early. Another shake. "Then where is everybody?" Hannah pointed toward the front window. "They're unloading." A car door slammed outside. I crossed the room and pulled the curtain aside. Donna was lifting shiny souvenir bags from the back of the SUV. My father-in-law, William, stood near the trunk sorting jackets and water bottles like they had returned from an ordinary family outing. Behind me, Hannah said, "They took everyone except me." The sentence made the whole room look different. The television was not entertainment anymore. It was what an 11-year-old had used to fill 7 hours by herself. I turned. "You were alone in this house all day?" "They said they'd be back before you got here." Another door opened outside and someone laughed. Then I saw who had taken her place. I stepped onto the porch as my husband's sister, Kimberly, opened the SUV's rear door. Her youngest son, 7-year-old Jamie, climbed out carrying a huge stuffed monkey. Jamie and the monkey both wore new amusement park hats. Kimberly leaned into the vehicle, unlatched a seatbelt from around the toy, and lifted its tiny backpack from the floor. I stared at the empty seat. Hannah had followed me to the doorway but stayed behind my shoulder. "That was supposed to be my seat," she said. I looked at the monkey. "It had a seatbelt?" Hannah nodded. "Jamie said he wasn't going unless it sat next to him." Jamie hugged the toy and walked past us. Kimberly avoided my eyes. William found something urgent to do in the trunk. I waited for someone to laugh and explain that the monkey had only been buckled in for a picture after Hannah changed her mind. Nobody did. Donna came up the steps carrying souvenir bags and a plastic photo frame. She looked tired, but not ashamed. "It was a very difficult morning," she said. I pointed toward the SUV. "Did you leave Hannah here so a stuffed animal could ride in her seat?" Donna sighed and brushed past me. Inside, she explained it like bad traffic. Donna set the souvenir bags on the kitchen counter and started removing receipts. Kimberly stood beside her while William filled glasses with water. They arranged themselves like a committee that had already approved its own decision. According to Donna, Jamie had placed the monkey in Hannah's seat before anyone else got into the SUV. When Hannah tried to move it, Jamie screamed, kicked the side panel, and refused to leave unless the monkey rode beside him. He planned the whole trip with it, Kimberly said. He wanted it there for the drive and the pictures. William folded his arms. We had 7 seats. Once Jamie needed 2, the numbers didn't work. Jamie did not need 2 seats. Donna gave me a patient look. You weren't here. He was inconsolable. I asked who told Hannah she was staying behind. I told her, Jamie needs 2 seats, so you won't be coming with us, Donna said. We all agreed she was old enough to understand. Hannah was 11. Kimberly's older son Ethan had gone, and he was 12. Her middle child Ruby had gone too. Ethan is older than Hannah, I said. Why wasn't he the one expected to understand? Donna's mouth tightened. That's different. How? Kimberly glanced toward Jamie, who was feeding crackers to the monkey at the table. William looked down at his glass. No one answered, because the real answer had ridden in Hannah's seat and was now sitting at the table wearing a hat. I started with the easiest solution. Why couldn't the monkey sit on Jamie's lap? He refused, Kimberly said. Then put it with the bags. He said it would be scared. Drive separately. Kimberly said her car had been making a noise. Donna said 2 parking fees were unreasonable. William said they would have missed their reserved entry time if they kept arguing. Then 1 adult stays with Jamie until he calms down, I said. William frowned. That would have ruined the day for everyone. I turned toward Hannah. But ruining it for her was fine? Donna told me not to twist the situation. Jamie was 7. Hannah was 11. The park had plenty of rides for smaller children anyway. Hannah had homework she could finish. They were gone for only 1 day, and another outing could be arranged. Every excuse changed the moment I answered it. None of them could survive the question beneath all of them. You had a choice, I said. You could disappoint Jamie, or you could abandon Hannah. You picked the child who wouldn't scream. Donna's expression hardened. We chose the child mature enough to cope. Hannah looked down when she heard that. I had praised her for being mature too. I had meant dependable, thoughtful, kind. Donna meant quiet enough to sacrifice. That was when I stopped debating the logistics. Why didn't anyone call me or Brian before changing the plan? I asked. Donna reminded me that I had been at work and my husband, Brian, was away supervising students overnight. Calling would only delay everyone without creating another seat. Then Hannah spoke from the doorway. Grandma told me not to bother you. The kitchen went silent. I asked Hannah what happened after the SUV left. Donna tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. Hannah said Donna reminded her I could not leave work and Brian was hours away. Donna promised a souvenir and another outing if Hannah behaved maturely. Hannah did not have a cell phone yet, and Donna and William had canceled their landline. Hannah could use Donna's tablet for games, but every calling app was locked. She knew the house, the food, and when they planned to return. She had not spent the day frightened. She had spent it hurt. She ate the sandwich I packed for the park and cried quietly. Later, new family pictures began appearing on Donna's tablet. The monkey was buckled into Hannah's seat in one. It sat between Jamie and his siblings at lunch in another. The group photo, taken beside the open SUV, was captioned, "The whole crew." Hannah rubbed her sleeve. I thought maybe you'd agree I was too old to go. That was the first thing Donna had taken that I could not replace. Donna reached into a souvenir bag and held out a roller coaster keychain. We didn't forget her. Kimberly suggested another outing when things were less complicated. William warned me not to turn one disappointing day into a family war. Then Donna said, "We did the best we could with the situation Jamie gave us." "Jamie is 7, I said. "He threw a tantrum. The adults made the decision." I picked up Hannah's backpack, the unopened envelope with her spending money, and the park map. I told all 3 adults that Hannah would not be left in their care again until Brian and I decided what happened next. At home, Hannah changed out of the park shirt and left it folded on the bathroom floor. I sat beside her and promised we would go together. "I know," she said, "but I wanted to go with them." That was the part no replacement trip could fix. I tried calling Brian twice, but the field center had no reception overnight. Earlier, while he still had service, he had skimmed Donna's photos online. Because Hannah had recently complained about a blemish, he assumed she had stayed behind the camera and that I would fill him in when he got home. After Hannah fell asleep, I opened the group picture again. The stuffed monkey was not merely in the photograph. It was standing where my child should have been. When I joined Brian's family, I noticed how differently Donna and William described their adult children. Kimberly was always talented and ambitious. Even when another job, project, or online business ended with someone else paying the bills. Brian was steady, which sounded like praise until I realized it meant nobody celebrated him. The night he became an assistant principal at the elementary school Jamie would later attend, I made dinner and hung a small banner in our kitchen. Donna and William arrived late. Donna hugged him, then asked whether the promotion gave him enough flexibility to help Kimberly's children. William said, "Teaching was always a strange choice for a man with your grades." Brian smiled tightly. "I'm not just teaching anymore." "I know. I'm saying you could have done more." 10 minutes later, Kimberly called because she had missed a school registration deadline. Donna handed Brian the phone before he finished eating. "You know the system," she said. "Fix it." He spent the rest of his celebration finding the correct district form and explaining an appeal she could have found herself. When he hung up, Donna beamed. "See? This is why family needs you." Nobody asked what the promotion had required. The family rule was clear. Kimberly's problems deserved attention, while Brian's achievements created new services he could provide. Brian had been trained to call that love. Kimberly applied the same rule to Jamie and called it modern parenting. At one family dinner, Donna served roast chicken, potatoes, and green beans. Jamie pushed the plate away and demanded pancakes. Donna reached for a frying pan. Hannah said, "Everybody else has to eat what Grandma made." Kimberly smiled as if Hannah had offered a teaching moment. "I'm raising Jamie to express what he needs instead of quietly accepting less." Donna made the pancakes. A month later, at Ruby's birthday party, Hannah was sitting in a padded chair near the air conditioner. Jamie decided he wanted it. He stood beside her repeating, "Move," while Kimberly watched. When Hannah refused, Kimberly did not correct him. She told Hannah, "Strong children know what makes them comfortable. Could you be generous?" Hannah got up. Jamie sat without thanking her, and Donna praised him for knowing his worth. I pulled Brian aside. "Do you see what they're teaching both kids?" He glanced toward the party. "It's one chair, Rebecca." "No. Jamie is learning that wanting it makes it his. Hannah is learning that loving him means surrendering it." Brian asked me not to turn a birthday into an argument. I let the moment pass because the candles were being lit. The incidents looked small only one at a time. The school saw the same pattern, but Kimberly treated every boundary as an injury. Once, I arrived to pick Brian up and found her outside a classroom arguing with Jamie's teacher. Jamie had been moved after repeatedly distracting another student. "You don't teach boundaries by ignoring his boundaries," Kimberly said. The teacher answered, "He was tapping the other child and taking his pencils." Jamie sat beside his mother, listening while she described the seat change as disrespect. Later that semester, he lost computer time after shoving a classmate away from a screen. Kimberly demanded a meeting and said the other child should have shared before Jamie became frustrated. She argued that taking away something he loved would damage his confidence. Donna repeated the story at Sunday dinner. "Schools prefer obedient children," she said. "Confident ones are harder to control." Brian told them the teachers were not attacking Jamie. Kimberly nodded until Brian stopped speaking, then told Jamie, "Your uncle understands that adults need to listen to you." Jamie heard every argument. He heard his mother redefine correction as mistreatment and his grandmother praise resistance as strength. The adults were not merely excusing what happened after the fact. They were teaching him that every limit was unfair and that enough noise would make an adult remove it. The school knew Jamie was Brian's nephew, so Brian never signed a report or made a formal decision about him. But Kimberly still pulled him into every conference and pushed him to speak privately with the principal, Thomas Walker. Brian's influence was quieter. Whenever Thomas considered stronger action, Brian urged patience. One evening, he came home and said Jamie had shoved another student during recess. Thomas wanted a formal behavioral review. "I asked for another conference first," Brian said. "Kimberly needs one more chance to reinforce the plan at home." "Does she know it is a last chance?" "I made that clear." The next week, Kimberly told Donna that Brian had handled the problem. At dinner, Kimberly joked that having an assistant principal in the family was finally useful. Brian corrected her, but she waved him off. By the amusement park trip, Jamie had received support plans, conferences, modified routines, and more extensions than most families would see. Brian believed each chance gave the adults at home time to help him. Kimberly believed each chance proved her brother would block real consequences. Sitting beside Hannah's bed that night, I understood the gap Brian had missed. At school, he asked people to wait while the family corrected the problem. At home, Donna and Kimberly told Jamie the problem was everyone else. The SUV seat was not an isolated mistake. It was the family system becoming visible. Brian came home the next morning with a duffel bag over one shoulder and coffee in his hand. He found Hannah at the kitchen table and asked, "Which ride was worth the longest wait?" Hannah stared at her cereal. "I didn't go." He looked at me, waiting for context. I gave him only the facts. Jamie demanded Hannah's seat for his stuffed monkey. The adults left her at Donna's house, and Donna told her not to interrupt either parent. Brian set down the coffee without drinking it. He opened the photos on his phone. The first showed Ethan, Ruby, and Jamie near the park entrance. The next showed the monkey strapped into the SUV. In the lunch photo, its matching hat was tilted toward the camera. "I thought you were taking the pictures," he said to Hannah. "I was at Grandma's house." He sat across from her. "All day?" She nodded. Brian scrolled back to the group photo. I watched him count the people, then count the seats visible through the open vehicle door. His face changed slowly, not with anger first, but with recognition. He had spent years telling everyone Hannah was mature, flexible, and easy to take anywhere. His family had heard permission. He put the phone face down. Then he asked Hannah the question I had been afraid she would answer honestly. "Did you think I would say they were right?" Brian asked. Hannah twisted her spoon between her fingers. "Maybe." "Why?" "Because Jamie is little, and you always say we should give him another chance." Brian looked at me, but I did not rescue him from that answer. He turned back to Hannah. "Did Grandma tell you I would understand?" Hannah nodded. Brian moved his chair closer. For years, conflict with Donna and William made him quieter. He explained, softened, and asked everyone to calm down. This time his voice became more precise. "You were not too old for that trip," he said. "You were not selfish. You were not difficult. Jamie wanted something that belonged to you, and the adults should have told him no." Hannah's eyes filled, but she kept listening. "I should have noticed sooner how often they ask you to be the reasonable one," he continued. "Being kind does not mean giving up your place every time someone else gets loud." She asked whether he was mad at her for not calling somehow. "No. I'm mad they made you think you had to protect us from knowing." He reached across the table and took her hand. Then he picked up his phone. I expected another careful family conversation. Brian did not sound careful when Donna answered. Donna opened the call by asking whether I had calmed down. Kimberly was there too and said everyone was attacking her for respecting Jamie's feelings. Brian put the call on speaker. "I'm not discussing Rebecca's reaction. You gave a stuffed animal Hannah's seat and left her behind. Is that what happened?" Donna began with the difficult morning. Kimberly cut in. "I'm teaching Jamie to know his worth and not make himself smaller for other people." "You taught him that nobody else matters when he wants something," Brian said. Kimberly called that a cruel distortion. William's voice came faintly from the room, telling everyone to lower their voices. Brian did not raise his. "Who stayed with Hannah?" No one answered. "Who called us?" Silence again. Donna finally said, "Family should protect family. My daughter is my family." That stopped her. Brian continued, "You will not use Hannah to keep Jamie happy again. She will not be left alone with any of you. You will not ask her to surrender anything because you are afraid to tell him no." Donna accused him of choosing his wife's version over his mother's. "I'm choosing what happened," he said. Then he ended the call while Kimberly was still talking. The room stayed quiet, but Brian was not finished. After the call, Brian opened his work laptop at the kitchen table. He started an email, deleted half of it, and rewrote the opening twice. I saw the principal's name and the district office in the address line, but not the body. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Something I should have done a long time ago." He read the message once more. His hand rested on the trackpad for several seconds. Then he pressed send. He closed the laptop before I could ask what he had written. Hannah came into the kitchen looking for a snack, and Brian changed the subject. He asked whether she wanted to choose a new date for the park. She said not yet. Nothing happened that day. Donna did not call. Kimberly did not post in the family chat. Brian went back to work Monday and came home at the usual time. For the next 2 days, the house stayed quiet, long enough for me to wonder whether the email had been only a formal apology or another private note asking Thomas Walker to give Jamie one more chance. Brian would say only, "I corrected my part." 3 days after he sent it, Donna and Kimberly began calling in a panic just after dinner. Brian let the first 3 calls ring. 20 minutes later, someone struck our front door hard enough to shake the frame. Donna and Kimberly were standing on the porch. Kimberly held a school letter in her fist. "What did you do?" Kimberly demanded before Brian fully opened the door. Donna stood behind her with both hands pressed together. Kimberly thrust the letter toward him. Jamie had been suspended after another classroom incident, and the school had referred him for a formal behavioral review. "The school suddenly stopped listening," she said. "They refused to give him another chance. They blamed him for everything." Brian read the first page. "This says he pushed a desk into another student's legs after being told to move seats. He was cornered. It says the other student was sitting down." Kimberly snatched the letter back. She said Thomas Walker had always been willing to discuss alternatives, but now the school would not delay the review. Staff had told her Brian was no longer participating in Jamie's case. She pointed at him. "You used your position to punish a 7-year-old because Mom hurt Hannah's feelings." Brian stepped onto the porch and pulled the door nearly closed behind him so Hannah could not hear. "I didn't do anything to Jamie." Donna shook her head. "That is not possible. Things changed right after your email." Kimberly lifted the suspension letter again. "You did this?" Brian looked at the page, then at his sister. "No," he said. "For once, I didn't stop it." That answer frightened them more than an admission would have. Donna said Brian had always been able to make the school see reason. Kimberly ordered him to call Thomas, attend the review, and explain that Jamie was misunderstood. "I'm not doing that," Brian said. Kimberly stared. "Then this is your fault. Refusing to reverse a decision is not the same as causing it." Donna accused me of turning him against his family. Brian moved closer to the porch steps. "Leave Rebecca and Hannah out of this." Kimberly warned that if he did not fix the suspension, she would tell everyone an assistant principal had used a child's education for revenge. Parents deserved to know what kind of man worked around their children. For the first time, Brian understood they were willing to threaten his career, not merely complain about his loyalty. "You can tell people whatever you want," he said. "It still won't make it true." Donna said the matter was not over. Kimberly gave him until morning to call the school. Brian stepped inside and locked the door. Hannah was standing in the hallway. He told her the argument was not her fault and sent her upstairs with me. Then he watched until Donna's car left. Only after the taillights disappeared did he show me what his email said. Brian reopened the sent message and turned the laptop toward me. It was shorter than I expected. He had written that Jamie was his nephew, that the family relationship created a conflict of interest, and that he was withdrawing from every meeting, recommendation, and informal conversation involving Jamie. He asked Thomas Walker and the district to follow ordinary procedures without consulting him. There was no request for suspension, no recommendation for transfer, no description of the amusement park trip. "You knew this might happen," I said. "I knew the review was close. I didn't know what the school would decide." "Then why not tell me?" "Because I didn't want it to sound like I was doing something to him." He pointed to one sentence. "Effective immediately, I will have no role in decisions concerning this student." For years, Brian had called his involvement patience. On the screen, it looked different. His family had mentioned his title in meetings, relied on private explanations, and assumed he would keep asking for one more plan. "I didn't punish Jamie," Brian said. "I stopped protecting Kimberly from whatever the process decided." The sentence was quiet and final. His family had mistaken special protection for fairness because they had never been forced to see the difference. Now the ordinary rules were enough to make them panic. The next morning, Thomas Walker called before Brian left for work. I could hear the principal's voice through the phone, measured and formal. Kimberly had filed a formal complaint accusing Brian of professional retaliation. One of Kimberly's friends ran a popular local Facebook page about schools and neighborhood disputes. That friend had posted a story claiming an assistant principal arranged his 7-year-old nephew's suspension after a family argument. Brian opened the page. The post named his workplace. It said parents should question whether a man who punished relatives could be trusted around students. Comments had already begun filling with guesses about other cases he might have influenced. Thomas told him not to respond publicly. The district would review the complaint, his email, Jamie's records, and every meeting note connected to the suspension. Brian read the post twice. His hands stayed still, but all the color left his face. "They're trying to take my career," he said. Until that moment, the family conflict had felt contained inside kitchens, phone calls, and front porches. Now strangers were discussing his judgment and naming the school where he worked. I reminded him that the email said exactly what he had done. He nodded, but evidence had not been reviewed yet. Then he called Donna and Kimberly and asked whether destroying his job had been their plan. Brian put the call on speaker. "Did you give that page the story?" Kimberly did not deny it. "You ruined Jamie's education first. I removed myself from his case. You knew what would happen." Donna joined in. "Perhaps you should lose your position if you use it to punish family." Brian closed his eyes briefly. "I did not request a suspension." Kimberly said, "You could have stopped it." "That does not mean I caused it." Kimberly repeated that he had chosen Hannah over Jamie, as though both children could not matter unless Hannah kept losing. Donna said a real brother would attend the review and explain Jamie's needs. Brian asked whether they had told the page he requested the suspension. Kimberly answered, "People can draw their own conclusions." "No, you gave them a false conclusion and called it a question." She threatened to share more details if the district did not reverse the decision. Brian said every message would be saved and provided to investigators. It was the first practical boundary he had placed around their accusations. Then he ended the call before they mentioned me. He went to work carrying the same lunch he had barely touched the day before. For several days, every notification made him check his phone. The investigation took only days, but our house changed during them. Brian checked his email before breakfast, during dinner, and once in the middle of the night. He answered district questions with dates and documents. He barely tasted his food. Then one afternoon he came through the door carrying a folder and put it on the kitchen table. They checked everything. The district compared the timeline, Jamie's disciplinary record, meeting notes, and Brian's email. The classroom incident happened 3 days after Brian sent that email. Thomas confirmed that Brian had not been consulted afterward and had taken no part in either the suspension or the referral for behavioral review. The district's technology log confirmed the timing. The complaint was closed as unsubstantiated. I read the conclusion twice. For the first time since the Facebook post, the truth was not merely our version. It was documented. Brian sat across from me, too tired to celebrate. "They could have ended this by telling people what I wrote." "They needed you to be the villain," I said. "Otherwise, they face what Jamie did." He looked toward the stairs, where Hannah was doing homework. The lie had reached his workplace. The record stopped it there. A few days later, the local page edited its post. The accusation vanished. An apology replaced it, stating that the original story relied on unverified information and that the assistant principal had no role in the suspension decision. The correction was smaller than the accusation, but people who had shared the original post began sharing the correction too. Brian's colleagues vouched for his professionalism without discussing Jamie's private records. Thomas made a brief public statement for the school. He confirmed that Brian had disclosed the family connection, stepped away before the incident, and played no part in the suspension. Kimberly posted that the district was protecting its own. Donna told relatives paperwork could be manipulated, but their story no longer moved cleanly from person to person. People asked what evidence supported the accusation. They asked why Brian would step away in writing before the incident if he intended secret retaliation. I watched him read the correction at the kitchen counter. He did not smile or scroll through the comments defending him. He simply released one long breath. Hannah walked in and asked whether everything was okay. Brian closed the page. "It is now." The family had tried to turn his quiet withdrawal into an attack. The truth showed it was the opposite. Several weeks later, Donna called crying. Jamie had returned from suspension and had another serious incident at school. When staff asked Kimberly to help calm him, she argued with them in front of him, said he had done nothing wrong, and refused to support their instructions. The behavioral review that had been delayed for months finally went forward. After the review, the district reassigned Jamie to a more structured program at another campus. Kimberly immediately blamed Brian again. "You got what you wanted," she said when she called him. Brian kept his voice even. "I had removed myself. I wasn't in the meeting. You set this in motion. Jamie's behavior set it in motion. Your response kept it moving." Donna begged him to call Thomas and ask for another chance. Brian reminded her that he had stepped out of Jamie's case and was not stepping back in. She said family mattered more than paperwork. He looked at Hannah, who was reading at the other end of the couch. "No," he said. "Family mattered when you left my daughter behind." Kimberly called him cruel. Donna said Jamie's future would be damaged. Brian answered that continuing to erase every consequence had already damaged Jamie. Then he hung up. For years, they had treated every warning as something Brian could negotiate away. Without him in the room, the warnings finally became decisions. Over the next few months, the apologies arrived in stages. Donna went first. She said she regretted how the park situation had been handled, then asked whether Brian could help find another school for Jamie. He said no. Kimberly apologized next and asked him to write a recommendation explaining Jamie was misunderstood. He said no again. Later, both asked whether we could contribute toward private school tuition because their options were narrowing. Brian gave the same answer. He was not punishing Jamie. He sent birthday cards and spoke kindly when they crossed paths, but he would not use his job, our money, or Hannah's patience to protect adults from their choices. Several weeks after the last request, Brian, Hannah, and I took our own amusement park trip. Hannah chose the music. Her backpack sat by her feet, her spending money was in her pocket, and nobody asked her to be mature for someone else's comfort. Before pulling out, Brian looked across the back seat and smiled. 3 people, 3 seats. Hannah laughed and buckled herself in. The new rule in our family was simple. Kindness did not require surrender, and being related did not erase responsibility. Brian stopped saving adults from the consequences they had avoided. Did Brian do the right thing, or should he have kept protecting his mother and sister because they were family? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.